evening and welcome to the 552nd episode of Travel It's Radio. I'm Dan Schlossberg along with Roger Noriega, and we are in the 13th season of Travel It's Radio, the show that lets you enjoy the pleasures of travel from the comfort of your armchair.
Every week at this time, we talk to people representing destinations, hotels, airlines, railroads, car rental companies, and others in the world of travel and hospitality, from authors and bloggers to broadcasters and publicists. If it's got anything to do with travel, it's got everything to do with Travel It's Radio.
Tonight, our guest is Ann Madison of Cruise Lines International Association. Welcome, Ann, to Travel It's Radio.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I love traveling from my armchair, but I'd prefer to actually be traveling.
Especially on a ship, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I loved your speech at IMM New York in January, and I'm honored that you were here today. I want to let our viewers know that you oversee global marketing and strategic communications for CLIA, including branding, research, and analytics, and also support strategy and business planning. That's quite a hefty job description. So what is your official title?
That's it. You got the title. No, actually, so my title is SVP of Strategic Communications and Marketing for the Cruise Lines International Association. But I really tried to avoid titles, and I really tried to avoid acronyms.
You've won many awards, including recognition as one of Maryland's top 100 women in travel and a top woman in travel and tourism leadership. Your campaigns have won awards from the Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association International, and you've twice been named as a top woman in public relations by PR News. It sounds like you're running out of room on your trophy shelf, but congratulations, all well-deserved, Ann.
Thank you. There's no trophy shelf, I can tell you. And I can also tell you, anything that I've done has not been an I kind of endeavor. Everything I've done, I've had the privilege to work with amazing people, talented people who I'm also very proud to call friends.
And our viewers love cruises. Am I right in saying that CLIA covers every type from small ships to large ocean-going vessels?
Yeah, that's true. Our core members are ocean cruise lines, but we also have as members river cruise lines. We have an expansive travel agent and advisory membership, and we have a number of members that also represent all the expertise that you find in cruise. So whether it's the maritime expertise, hospitality, food and beverage, all sorts of things. So, and ports and destinations are a big part of our membership.
How many member cruise lines are there in Cruise Lines International Association, and how does the organization help individual members?
Well, there's actually 56 cruise lines, but if you break that out between ocean and river cruise lines, you've got 44 ocean cruise lines at both the global and the regional level that are members of Cruise Lines International Association. And then there's 12 river cruise lines. It's a much smaller segment, but a very important segment.
We keep hearing about bigger and better cruise ships and itineraries. So what is the state of the cruise industry midway through 2024?
Well, I'm going to tell you that it is stronger than ever, and it was stronger than ever last year. We are outpacing in terms of, we're beyond recovery. We're well past that. But I can tell you that if you compare cruise, the number of cruise passengers that have sailed this year and last year, this year so far and last year, we are well beyond the pace of what international arrivals are for tourism. So the number of people that are traveling internationally has still not yet hit the 100% back to 2019 mark. They're about 97%, but we hit last year well past the 100% to be on par with 2019. And cruise is resilient. It's shown this in prior kinds of downturns. And I can also tell you that there's still plenty of room for growth. This is a strong and resilient industry, and it's rather young.
We hear passenger volume top 31.7 million, up 7% from 2019. What accounted for that number? Inventory provided by new cruise ships or increased interest in cruising as a specific type of vacation?
So all of that and more. And I would say it's, there's a strong intent to cruise. It's stronger than it was in 2019. You've got increasing capacity to meet that demand. So making more opportunities available, more itineraries available for people, because the cruise lines are very smart. They are providing itineraries and ships and capacity that meets the demand. But the demand is outpacing, everything else in terms of holidays. So there's a value of a cruise holiday that has been a consistent over time. And I think there's some room to close that value gap and still provide a great value to vacationers. There's another thing, though. It's also the younger generation. So the younger generation's interest in cruise is amazing. More than 50% of cruise travelers are almost 50% are under the age of 40. And it's a very strong segment in terms of the intent to cruise among millennials and Gen X.
To me, the best thing about a cruise is unpacking once and sleeping in the same place every night while exploring a different destination every day. You agree?
Yeah, that's one of the key reasons. But I'll tell you what, there are also other reasons. I already mentioned value, and so that is definitely one. But there's also, think about it, this is a cruise where you could go on this is a holiday, you go on multi-generational travel. About a third of people are traveling with 2 or 3 different generations. So there's something for everybody on a cruise, and there is a cruise for almost everybody. There's also the safety and the experiences that are available on a cruise. So there's a lot of unique selling propositions about a cruise, and cruisers love to cruise for all those reasons.
On the East Coast, where I live, Caribbean cruises are popular in the winter, Alaska cruises in the summer, and New England cruises in fall foliage season. But when is the best time to take a cruise in general? Their commercials are terrific.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what, it's almost any time is a great time to take a cruise. One reason for that is there used to be very specific cruise seasons, depending on the market. And to some extent, that still exists. But even those seasonalities, take Alaska, have extended beyond. And so you really see a strong shoulder season market that's happening. And in other markets, it's pretty much year round.
We're talking with Ann Madison of Cruise Lines International Association.
I want to welcome everyone watching our program and let us know who you are and where you hail from in the chat room. We do have a question that hopefully we don't repeat ourselves, but coming in from ARC54. Good afternoon. I have a question. How accommodating are your cruises for someone severely disabled?
Well, I've got to tell you that cruise is one of the most accessible ways to travel. Now, everybody's situation is different, so it's important to talk to your cruise line. Yes. But in terms of the experience and the ability to travel, we've asked this question, and we ask it repeatedly, and the cruise lines do this, a lot of research into this. Accessibility is a travel imperative. And today there are let's talk about off the ship. There's more than 100 accessible shore excursions that are available in cruise ports of call. That's a huge increase over the last 5 years. And we know that 45% of cruise travelers on CLIA memberships, they booked an accessible shore excursion in the past year. And in terms of accessibility on the ship, now you'd say I think it's about 15% of travelers have accessibility needs. And it does go beyond physical needs. But if you really look at it, any travelers really, unless you're a solo traveler, you're not traveling alone. And so when we asked that question to cruise travelers and we said to find out what percentage people either have accessibility needs or are traveling with somebody who has accessibility needs, that percentage jumped up to 85%. So then we asked those 85%, where do you rank cruise in terms of its accessibility, in terms of, is it your only choice or are there other choices that you take? And we found the vast majority of them said that cruise was the only holiday option for them because of accessibility needs.
Wow, that is awesome to know. With Disney cruises aimed at kids and Carnival attracting young adults, well, I used to be, and Carnival cruises geared toward a more sedate audience, is it fair to say that each cruise line aims for a particular age group?
Well, not necessarily. I'll give you an example. Expedition, for example, Expedition cruise lines, you find a range of travelers in terms of ages there. There's also something that the cruise lines have been doing really, really well over the past several years, and that's really creating communities or neighborhoods on their cruise ships and different types of experiences. So, I think the trend in cruise is less about segmenting the ship to instead focus more on customer segmentation and customer aspirations, and then developing marketing and cruise experiences for them. And you'll pardon the pun, I think that opens up a sea of opportunities for the cruise industry. I had to get one in, at least one, right? So, but we're a relatively small portion of travel and tourism. about 2% of all travel and tourism. So therefore, there's plenty of room for growth, and the cruise lines are really great at finding the right kind of marketing to match the experiences that are available, the wide variety of experiences that are available on a number of ships. Yes, of course, there are a certain number of ships that do, segment more toward a certain age group than others. But for the most part, the cruise lines have done just provided widened the opportunity of options, itineraries, and ship choices for people without keeping it restricted to a particular age group. Now, again, there are differences. There are some cruise lines that are adults only, for example. And that also meets a traveler need or a desire and an aspiration for the type of holiday they want. So again, lots of opportunities, lots of options.
Every cruise I've taken includes optional shore excursions. Are they growing in popularity? Because I've taken 3, and yeah, it's tougher to get a shore excursion.
Yeah, 70, the last research that we did on this, we found that about a third, about 71, 72% go on a shore excursion. And we do know that 91% of people that are on a cruise, of course, if you average it out, about 91% go ashore. The interesting thing is, and this is important for people to know from destinations, is that 60% of people that go on a cruise holiday and visit a destination first by cruise go back later for a land-based longer holiday. So it's a great opportunity to introduce people to different destinations that are available on land as well.
That's interesting. I appreciate that. Speaking of popularity, some of the new mega ships are like floating theme parks with giant pools and water slides that are busy all day long. Could you talk about some of those, please?
Yeah, well, listen, I've been on some of those, and I'll tell you, I did not feel like I was on a huge cruise ship. And again, it goes back to a couple of things. One, the neighborhoods that I talked about. But the second thing that we haven't talked about yet, and that is cruise lines are experts at traffic flow patterns and making sure that patterns are convenient and don't get clogged up in one place or another. So the flows are good. Yes, every once in a while, just like you are, if you're going through any city or destination and you're traveling, there's going to be, theme park, whatever, you're going to find places where traffic does build up. But the cruise lines have done a great job of creating these neighborhoods and creating these traffic flow patterns. And again, providing these experiences. What I love about a cruise is that it is completely experiential. Not only do you get to visit a number of different places and experience those places, you're also experiencing something on the way to those destinations. So it's a great selling point. It's one of the reasons I love to cruise.
For first timers, would you recommend a small, more intimate ship or one of the larger vessels?
See, it's not a one size fits all answer. So here's where I'm going to recommend. I'm going to recommend people go to their travel agent, because travel agents, travel advisors are professionals. They are experts at matching you to the right cruise, the right itinerary, and the right time. And in fact, our research, when we looked at the satisfaction level of travelers with their cruise experience, we found that it was anywhere between 20-25% higher for those who had used a travel agent, because the travel agent knows all the ships, all the itineraries, all the experiences, and can connect you to the right one.
We did the first time ourselves as well.
Yeah.
Cruise ships always have theaters, yes, shows, movies, and a great nightlife options. In fact, some of them attract well-known entertainers. Is that still one of the appeals of cruising?
It sure is. So these shows are productions that you would find in some of the finest cities in the world. They're amazing. And I had the privilege of watching on one cruise ship. It was launching and they were practicing and putting together their act, still bringing it together. And they really go to great lengths to make sure that it is timed well, that it's going to meet the audience's needs. And the talent that is on cruise ships, from music to comedy to acrobats to almost anything. It's absolutely amazing. Love the entertainment on cruise ships.
Yes, I've been fortunate myself. We're talking with Ad Madison of Cruise Lines International Association.
And we have to talk food.
Yes, please. Let's talk about food.
Terrific. Food is still terrific at sea, but that the famous midnight buffet has retreated into the history books. Is that true?
you're still going to find buffets, but not like what you would think in the 80s or 90s. And that is because the food has gone up. The bar for food has gone up so much higher. They're absolutely great cuisine. And it is one of the best experiences that you have. It's also important to note sustainability is really key here, and also local sourcing of food. There is an amazing economic benefit beyond what you benefit as a cruise traveler in terms of the food that's available, because with the local sourcing, you've got something fresh. The sustainability of it all, you have got something that's good and responsible, and then some of the finest chefs, the finest food that you're ever going to find anywhere.
You just touched on this, but is it true that something like 3 out of every 4 cruise vacations are influenced by a travel agent?
They absolutely are. In fact, I would say the only thing that is above a travel agent is the influence of family and friends. But most people are going through a travel agent, and they go to them because of their expertise.
And speaking of percentages, what percent of cruisers would you say are first timers?
So there's a huge room for growth here, and we're finding the first-time buyer percentage is going up. It will vary by cruise line, so it's hard to make some broad percentages here, but we are seeing an increase in that, in the number of people and the percentage of people that are taking their very first cruise. And what we found is, you can get somebody on a cruise ship for the very first time, they more so than not will become a cruiser for life. I call them forever cruisers, and I'm one of them.
And I know you mentioned different generations, multi-generation travel. What percent are family groups of 2 or more from different generations? What percent?
So it's the majority of groups are majority is family. So and about a third are traveling with 2 or 3 generations.
Wow. I want to tell our viewers, you're tuned to Travel It's Radio now in our 13th season with Dan Schlossberg and Roger Noriega. Check us out on iTunes, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Travel It's Radio Facebook page, and so much more. And we're talking with Ann Madison of Cruise Lines International Association.
We hear that the cruise industry under CLIA is making good progress toward its goal of net zero emissions by 2050. Would you enlighten us, please?
Sure. So this is a challenge for all. It's all sectors, all business sectors to get there. But the Cruise Lines International Association and all of our members have said we are pursuing net zero emissions by 2050. Our cruise line members put out sustainability reports. We put out a report last year that you can find on cruising.org that talks about the different initiatives that are happening. But this is all really, really critically important to be responsible. And I would say that cruising is one of the most responsible ways. Here's the way, though, that we're looking for it, because there is no availability of any fuel for any sector, maritime, air, automobile, transportation in general, that is a pure net zero emissions fuel. So we have to get there. But think about a cruise ship. This is about investing in the future, because it's a long-lived asset. A cruise ship could be sailing for 30 or more years. So it's a huge investment, usually for the larger cruise ships of over $1 billion. And so what the cruise lines are doing are really investing their time in fuel flexibility. And they're spending billions of dollars in investigating through trials and pilot programs, different types of fuel, because it's important to be able to send a signal to fuel providers and to technology providers about the path that could be there, because they are the ones that need to then invest in producing enough of that fuel to be available at scale. So fuel flexibility is really critical. So what the cruise line members are doing, they're investing in propulsion technologies with conversion capabilities for the future. Because again, there's no fuels available at scale for the transportation sector. So the cruise industry is investing billions in new ships, new engines that will allow for that flexibility. And their increase in the uptake of fuels and propulsion technologies that are at a reduced emissions rate has increased. And every single year that we release, our cruise line members release new ships, those ships are about 20 to 25% more efficient than the ones that came before them. So fuel flexibility will allow us to use zero GHG greenhouse gas fuels once they're available at scale, with little to no engine modification. And so right now, the investment and the trials are related to getting from a fossil fuel LNG, which is already at reduced emissions, to an eLNG, looking at green methanol, bio LNG, synthetic LNG, hydrogen fuel cells, all of these kinds of things that everybody should have been paying attention to when we were in science class.
Yes, and you may have answered Aisha's question. She's from the United Kingdom, which is really cool. So, yeah, that's impressive. Now, are we correct in saying that Cruise Lines International Association members host 95% of global cruise passenger capacity?
Yep, that's true. So whether you look at it in terms of number of ships or you look at it in terms of the number of people who could sail on those ships, it's about 95% of capacity of the entire industry. Yep.
Wow. Since cruising is an outdoor activity, weather, and it was for me, is sometimes a factor, how do Cruise Line International Association members handle hurricane season, which usually runs from now until October in the North Atlantic?
Right. And there's
By the
other
way.
weather events in other parts of the world as well, obviously. This is another great thing about cruise is that the cruise lines have movable assets, which means they're constantly looking out, they're watching, they're navigating. And so they can see ahead of what's to come and are able then to adjust itineraries in the interest of safety for passengers and crew.
Do cruise lines sometimes change? Well, yeah, I guess
Yep,
so.
they absolutely do.
Yeah,
And
because
now,
of storms.
obviously, that is the last thing we want to do because people booked the cruise for the itinerary, but they also booked that cruise to be safe. And so the great thing is that there are a number of other destinations that we work with, and the cruise lines will call ahead and they'll make those arrangements to make sure, let's get you someplace that you're still going to have fun. It may not be the place that was originally on the itinerary, but I think the number one priority, or above the number one priority for the cruise lines, is safety. We want to make sure people are safe.
Now let's talk about peak and bargain seasons, which I believe is booking in advance, period, for the best price.
Yeah.
But what is the best time of year for a cruise passenger to get the most bang for their buck?
Hey, I'm going to say that the best time to do it is wave season. So wave season is wave season starts the first quarter, but it actually starts much earlier. So the cruise lines tell us that they're seeing wave season start in 2 or 3 months before the official start of wave season. And this is the best time to do it.
Yes. At the same time, passengers who want to spend holidays at sea should book far ahead to get cabins they want, right?
Well, that's true. Now, they're not the offering of cabins. They're all so wonderful. It doesn't matter whether you're going to go for a standard room or you want to splurge for a suite. The cabins, the staterooms are fantastic.
Yes.
And there's also so many choices. And even for solo travelers. So think about solo travelers. It used to be that the rooms that a solo traveler would get was an inside cabin, right? Now, cruise lines, depending on the line, are offering, cruise staterooms with balconies, beautiful views. But if you're in an interior cabin, you also still get a fantastic room. But where are you going to spend your time? Whether you're in a suite or you're in a standard room, you're going to spend your time out on that deck, enjoying the ocean air, or in a wonderful port destination.
Very quickly, we have 3 other questions if we may get to them. Aisha asked, with cities like Venice banning cruise ships, are the cruise lines worried about other cities following a similar agenda? But we do know that they're banning them in Venice due to eco reasons, right? Due to what's going on.
Well, I'll tell you that the premise of the question is wrong. So cruise ships are not banned. And in fact, the cruise industry worked very, very closely with the destination, which we do with all destinations, because we care about the destination. It is the lifeblood of cruising, just as the health of the ocean is and the air is. And so we worked for a long time with Venice to determine what is the best route to get to Venice. So not using a particular route into the particular port, going outside that a little bit, being able to provide options that work better for the destination. And also in places like Dubrovnik, where we've worked with the destinations on the flow of passengers, because all destinations want to make sure people are going to, through, and beyond those gateways in order to have the right kind of traffic flow and to be able to respect the residents, the business owners, and the heritage and the treasures that are inherent in any destination. So we often hear about bans, and they are often wrong.
Excellent. Good to know. Easy question. We already talked about it.
Mhm.
Is it truly Michelin star level on the food?
Oh, the food's fantastic.
Yes.
I'm not a Michelin star evaluator, so I can't tell you that, but I can tell you I love food and I love really good food and fantastic. And that's the other thing. You have not just the main dining rooms that you can go to for kind of freestyle dining, but there's also specialty
Yes.
restaurants that are as options for those people who want to have a different type of experience. And yes, it costs a little bit more, but it's worth it because you already have a great value holiday.
Yes, and some of them don't cost. They're just like regular stations. I've noticed on a Carnival ship several stands that are unique, and it's part of it. But I don't want to go any further off topic. I apologize. We're talking with Ann Madison of Cruise Lines International Association.
And is Christmas, New Year's week the most popular time of year for cruising? What about Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, even Passover for Jewish people who want to have their seders at sea?
Any time is a great time. Any time is popular. And the way we know this is because the cruise lines are running to, at their ships at capacity, because the cruise industry, it's very different than hotels, which I used to be in. Ships are built to fill. So it's not like when you look at a hotel and you say, okay, what's your RevPAR? I mean, if you are at 100% occupancy in a hotel, then you're probably charging too little for that room. But in the cruise industry, the capacity is what was built to fill, to meet the demand. And so that's why we know, as we're seeing increasing capacity in cruise, that the demand is also increasing.
How hard did COVID-19 hit the cruise industry? And would you say it is all the way back?
More than back. What we really were able to prove during that time was the effectiveness of health and safety protocols of the cruise lines. That was absolutely proven, and it was shown to be better than on land.
I've taken many cruises myself, from the QE2 ocean liner to the American Queen Mississippi River paddle wheeler. So I believe there's a cruise for people of all ages. Do you agree?
I absolutely agree. And again, go back to multi-generational travel. This cruise would not be as popular as it is with those who are traveling with multiple generations unless they had opportunities, experiences, excursions, onboard amenities that would meet the needs of various ages.
And theme cruises are very popular. I know because I'm the founder of the baseball theme cruise concept.
Yeah.
Way back
Love
in
it.
1981 on the QE2 for Cunard Lines. I know there are wine cruises, military history cruises, and many other types. Do you have any personal favorites?
Music and food. Those are two types of specialty cruises that I've been on, and they were fantastic.
You got to come on one of my baseball cruises, Ann.
I love baseball. I'll go.
I got to tell you one quick, got to interject this. One of the Mississippi River cruises that I did, not even sure it was Mississippi. Let's put it this way. It was a river cruise. We went to Dubuque, Iowa, home of Field of Dreams. We
Nice.
went to the Field of Dreams site and
Wow.
we staged the movie.
Oh, that is
during the
amazing.
cruise.
I love it.
It was a shore excursion. It was fabulous. And we had baseball players do it.
And I
Real
would
baseball
have
players.
loved to have done that, especially if did you have Kevin Costner? Because then I'm in. I am
All right,
absolutely
Kevin.
in. Call me.
You get Kevin. Next time we'll
I'm
get Kevin, I
there.
promise. Okay, we know that CLIA supports policies and practices that foster safe, secure, and sustainable cruise operations. Would you explain what that means?
Yeah, it's really about having industry leading maritime policies. And it's a requirement, as a requirement of membership, that our ocean cruise line members are going to follow and meet those policies. They go well beyond, in many cases, what the requirements are in regulations and regional laws and so forth. And this is really, really important. So when we look at our maritime policies, it's really about practices, innovations that are designed to protect the health, the well-being of passengers and crew, the waters on which we sail, the destinations we visit. And it's, more than that, our members are required then to sign an affidavit saying that they will meet those policies and are meeting those policies.
And finally, is there anything that we haven't asked you that you would like to add? I'm sure there's probably a lot.
Oh, there's so much. There's so much. But I would say when people ask me, why is cruise so great? I say there's three reasons. Cruise is accessible. it's responsible, and it's experiential. And I mean it in all of the terms, all of the definitions of those words. Cruise is absolutely the best way to see the world.
How do Travel Itch Radio viewers learn more about cruising and Cruise Lines International Association?
So I would go to cruising.org and you can read more about the industry. And also you'll be able to go there and find a travel agent that is a certified travel agent from CLIA to be able to connect to a travel agent if you're not already working with one.
Our guest tonight on Travel Itch Radio has been Ann Madison of Cruise Lines International Association. Thank you so much for being our guest.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Dan, for always making sure that people know about great holidays and how they can book them.
You're more than welcome, Ann. And I must tell our viewers before we go, this is the 50th anniversary of the home run that broke Babe Ruth's record for Hank Aaron. With Father's Day right around the corner, now is your chance to share that spirit with my new biography, Home Run King, The Remarkable Record of Hank Aaron. Featuring a foreword by Dusty Baker, this 265-page hardcover explores Aaron's contributions as a home run hitter on and off the field, as an athlete and an advocate for civil rights. That's Home Run King, The Remarkable Record of Hank Aaron. Get it today on Amazon.com or come to my signings in Cooperstown, Baseball Hall of Fame, June 20th and July 20th. And that's it for this edition of Travel Itch Radio. This is Dan Schlossberg saying thank you for your time this time. Until next time, next week, same time, same place. We'll talk to Marco Wennett about the San Diego Zoo. For now, good night and stay safe. And if I can get this music to work, I always have a problem with it, but I'm directing it, I'm composing it, waving the baton, and